So in the age of nail guns, when nail guns put the nails in on job sites most of the time, what would compel me to spend as much money on a hammer as I spent on that? I don't remember what I spent, but I think it was in the $150 range, and they're more than that now. This Stiletto Ruger 14-ounce titanium hammer with a magnetic hammer nail holder and an elegant design. Why would I spend that amount of money? Let me tell you why I would spend that amount of money, and if I ever lose this, I'll spend it again. Now, to understand what led me to get this, I think now probably 20 years ago, let me talk to you about the 45 years that I've spent as a professional carpenter and the evolution in the hammers that I've used over that period of time with the different kinds of work that I was doing. So I started with a Vaughan 999. It was a 20-ounce hammer, just like this, only not near as big. This is a Vaughan 32-ounce. I don't remember where I got this. I never used it, but I did use for about 3 years a 28-ounce hammer just like this by Vaughan. And man, it would put sinkers in down below your feet like crazy. And it would smash your thumb into oblivion, which is what you have to have when you're really trying to get some work done. But then after about 2 weeks of putting soffit on and driving smaller nails overhead, man, my elbow started to hurt. And so I started dropping back to a lighter hammer. Now along the way, and about the time I started piecework framing in Las Vegas, I started using a rigging axe a lot. And I was just instantly converted to the way these things put a nail in. I used my Plum rigging axe, just like this one that Dave Taylor gave me, for long enough that finally the cheeks on the head began to fail. They would crack and I would weld them and they would crack, and finally they just essentially crumbled because I had driven so many wedges in there and put so many handles in it that it just gave up. But I'll tell you what, at the risk of repeating myself, there's something about a rigging axe, that weight forward aerodynamic shape, that's magic for putting nails in. And if nail guns had not become the solution to the problem, I would still be using it. Now, as a form setter, an Estwing hammer, steel handled, you got to have it, because demolishing forms and pulling duplex nails tears wood handles out. But at some point, a man named Henry Rebman introduced me to titanium stiletto hammers. I think he gave me a little stiletto finish hammer. And then Dustin, my good friend Dustin, convinced me to try his stiletto. And I thought, it feels good. It drives nails, and I'm going to switch. Now here's an interesting thing. This was the handle that I used in this hammerhead up until 3 years ago when we started the spec house. I got well over a decade out of that one wooden handle. And I still worked hard, and I still did a wide range of projects. And what that told me as I began to think about it, that the wear and tear and forces that would break wooden handles out of heavier hammers were not coming into play in the same way with a lighter hammerhead. And yet I was getting just as much work done. If I extended that and thought about how my arm was feeling, I realized that the same dynamic of the vibration and the whatever's going on with a heavy hammer, that repetitive action on your bones and on your joints and on that juncture right there, was less damaging with a lighter head on your hammer. Fair enough. I consider that evidence of something. Now, the only evidence that really matters, though, is how much work you get done and how you feel at the end of the day. So yes, a lighter hammer is less of a burden in your bags. It doesn't bang against your leg as hard. It sure is a lot better hammering out of position. It seems to do all of the work that I need to do except driving over bottom plates. When I've got to drive over a bottom plate, a light hammer just doesn't have the energy. But I have never been disappointed in the work that I need to get done with this thing, considering, repeating myself, that most of the nails go in with compressed air. Now, I'll just point out that the corrugations, the texture on the face of this, and that's steel, by the way, that is somehow wedded to that titanium head, They've worn off just about the way they seem to do on every other commercially available hammer. The magnetic nail holder is a win about 20 times a year, but every time one of those times comes along, I think, wow, I would sure hate to go back to not having that groove on this hammer. And so for those reasons, and probably some that are not coming to mind that I haven't articulated, I don't want to ever have to build anything without this hammer in my bags. Not to say that I might not walk back to the truck and get a different hammer for 15 minutes or maybe half a day. But for day in, day out, remodeling, setting forms, new construction, general purpose carpentry, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't demonstrated it to and for myself. If I was still production framing, I would probably still be using one of these. But as wide a range of things as I've been doing for the last 20 years, this thing is absolutely worth every penny I spent to buy it, and it would be worth every penny I would have to spend to replace it. So in life, if we're honest with ourselves, we always do what we want to do, if we can. It's our desires that drive what we do and who we know and really what we become. And that's even true in our tools. It's the tools that I love that I use. And that adds a dimension of satisfaction for me. I expect that it does for you. And so one of the criteria is I have really learned to love this thing. Thank you for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.